Hi, my name is Carolyn Keeble, and I am the co-chair of the Children's Science Center Youth Advisory Board and a senior at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. I'm excited to introduce you today to Mr. Bruce Anderson, who is joining us today for our STEM Champion interview series. Bruce Anderson, president and CEO of 247Solar Incorporated, is considered one of the solar industry's foremost pioneers. A graduate of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Bruce is co-inventor of the 247 Solar Plant, a modular coal-competitive concentrated solar power system that incorporates several ultra-high temperature power generation and storage technologies with origins at MIT. Bruce began his solar energy career more than 4 decades ago, and in 1985, he became the first recipient of the American Solar Energy Society's Lifetime Solar Contribution Award. He later served on the National Advisory Board of the Solar Energy Research Institute, now the National Renewable Energy Institute. In 1990, working with Earth Day founder Senator Gaylord Nelson, Bruce co-founded Earth Day USA, which expanded Earth Day from a 10-year anniversary celebration to an annual international event. At MIT, Bruce has served as visiting professor and as director of its industrial liaison program. He has also served as a director of the international board of the MIT Alumni Association and as a member of the MIT Corporation. The STEM Champion interview series highlights the diverse STEM community and the journey STEM champions have taken, allowing children and young adults to explore what is achievable. Mr. Anderson will be discussing his background and career, as well as the future of STEM. Welcome. So I know from your bio that your thesis at MIT in the 70s was on the topic of solar home building, and that it became the basis for a best-selling book called The Solar Home Book. That is still referenced by architects of solar homes. So I want to know what attracted you to this topic.
Well, that's a great question. Back in the late 60s and early 70s, there were some really seminal events that were life-changing for me. The publication, for example, of Limits to Growth by I don't remember who, but it was a profound book on what the limits are to this planet's capabilities of supporting people. And then there was Silent Spring by Rachel Carson.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the first Earth Day back in 1970. And during that same time, the turmoil around the anti-war movement and everything else. And I was in architecture at MIT. And so I was looking around for a thesis, and hardly anything was being done about solar energy in building design. And I said, this is it. We've got to change how we design and build buildings.
Wow. So tell us more a little bit about your education and how you got into architecture maybe, and then how that interest, like how you decided specifically that you would apply architecture to a field like this, which I feel like generally people don't think of as much when they think of just architecture.
No, unfortunately not. Well, a couple of things. One, I was younger. I built my own model railroad station or my whole, platform and the whole 9 yards, with the mountains and everything else. And and then I was fond of Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous architect. And I didn't know, but still didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to MIT. And the great thing about MIT is that you can study anything you want to at any time. And also that it enables you and encourages you to think out of the box. And that you can do anything you set your mind to. And so, why not change the way the world builds buildings? It seemed to me that was an obvious thing that I should be trying to do, since that was what I thought I was capable of at the time with my background and the training I was getting and the threat to the world.
Yes, yeah, that's true. And I like how you could take that education and sort of explore throughout college? Did you have experiences with other fields where you thought you might go into something else, but then always like came back to this, or was it really like straight shot architecture and?
No, it wasn't a straight shot. I also got an aeronautical and astronautical engineering degree along the way, course 16. Um, and I'll never forget the last course that I had to take there. It was on rocket propulsion, and I was already starting my my architecture training, and I just barely got through that final course on Aero and Astro. But so it wasn't smooth sailing. It wasn't a straight line. Life is not a straight line.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were days when back in long ago, and it was a straight line. You started this at the beginning of your life, and you ended it that way, and that was it.
Yeah, of course. What are some other major obstacles you had specifically in this field? Like, what are some of the biggest things that people in this field are trying to solve, the biggest issues?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest. I think the biggest challenge to making such a big change is the existing infrastructure,
Mm,
because the existing infrastructure, whether it's cars, homes, other buildings, transportation systems, energy systems, they're all expensive and they're all built to
right,
last.
right,
And they all have constituencies, people who like things just the way they are. And that's that's the biggest challenge is how do you stop using the stuff you've already got? How
right.
does the world put all that aside and say, okay, demolish that building and replace it with one that maybe produces more energy than it uses? You're
Mhm.
not going to do that. So it's very difficult. One of the things I recognize, though, is that compared with 50 years ago or so, when I wrote my thesis, um, the problems already is just way worse. We have so many more buildings today than we had then,
Mhm.
and so the problem of inefficient buildings is worse than it was back when we started.
Right, but there's still that high initial cost of making the change to have more efficient buildings.
Yes, although depending on how well you build a building, if you're building a building that produces energy, you're saving a lot of money too on the systems and the energy that would use
Mhm.
if you build it the old-fashioned way. So it's not necessarily a loss or an extra cost,
Interesting.
but it is a new building. See, that's the thing.
Right,
It's
right.
still a new building. It's not fixing the old buildings. It's building a new building. Fixing the old buildings is very tough.
Right. And of course, like, so if there's a building already standing there that's in good condition, that's when it would be extra cost to build a more efficient building.
Hmm.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. But that's very good to see that these options are financially available. And in the future, when like more buildings need to be built because the ones that we have now break down, this is a viable option without being an extra cost.
Well, that's right. And the costs of all clean energy are coming down very quickly.
Mhm.
And at least to produce electricity, solar and wind are more and more often less expensive than conventional energy.
Wow. That's really great to hear and very needed.
Yeah.
Um, so more on the topic of how to like implement this and why maybe not a lot of solar energy is being used right now as much as it should. What do you think some more challenges are with the adoption of solar energy, not just in this country, but also globally? Because some countries are more ahead in like environmentally friendly options, while others are more behind. For example, solar had a strong surge in the 80s, but didn't really stick. So why are today's clean tech and solar revolution, why is that different?
Well, back in that era, which I was a part of, the reason it didn't stick is because the federal government terminated the solar tax credits,
Hmm.
and oil came back strong and lower cost. Um, that's not the issue today. The issue, and for example, PV, photovoltaic solar, electric solar, was 100 times more expensive back then than it is today. It was only used for space travel.
Right.
Um, and now today everything's changed. There's the political imperative for sure. Climate change. Nobody's going back to fossil fuels. The revolution's already happened, and there's no going back to fossil fuels.
That's good.
What's also changed is that people understand it. There's more infrastructure. There's more people knowledgeable about it and about how to deploy it. There's momentum. There's financing. In fact, the financial community is shifting its uh, lending, for example, in projects from fossil fuel projects to solar projects. All it is Everything's different today. It's just a whole different world.
Wow. Yeah. But it seems like progress is being made. And a lot of the options are just more viable now than they may have used to have been. So I like to see that.
Well,
Um,
there are places in the world. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are places in the world where solar is and wind together are producing more than 100% of of the needs of a country or of a specific area within the country. It's happening very fast now. As a STEM student, you'll appreciate the laws of exponential growth. That even if you increase something, say only at 25% a year, after 10 years, you've got a really, really huge number. And after 3 or 4 decades, this world is completely switched over to carbon-free fuels and energy. That's all it takes, just a steady, 25% a year, which is roughly the pace that we're at.
wow, that's really encouraging for the future. And speaking of the future, what advice do you have for kids or young adults who want to go into STEM, not only with their education, but also turning their interests into a career that is like helpful for the future?
The best advice that I got when I was growing up was follow your bliss. And what that means is follow your passion, and let your passion lead you. Uh, we STEM people, nerds, geeks, whatever you want, are becoming pretty popular, and sort of the thing to be these days. So you don't have to worry about that part of it. And the world is getting more technical, and so the need for STEM training is growing in every single dimension of our lives. Every single dimension. I mean, even our thermostats, uh, or the controls for our lighting. I mean, you name it. The world is just becoming so technical.
Mhm.
So there's certainly an opportunity, and so do what you really enjoy, and you'll find a way of being happy and making a living at the same time.
Wow, yeah. I think that is really important too, because like when I was younger, I feel like learning about STEM, it felt like there were only a couple paths that you could go on with STEM. But now, like bio, engineering, whatever. But now throughout high school, I feel like I've taken such a variety of classes that I can really see how almost anything I can think of doing, I can apply a background of STEM to that. Um, so yeah, I agree with that.
I think I know my wife uses STEM when she cooks and bakes.
Yes, I
You,
do
you
too.
can't you can't avoid it.
It's all chemistry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all
So
numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it makes things more interesting too to think about it from like an analytical point of view, I think.
I think it also opens up your curiosity because when you have a STEM training, you're not afraid to be inquisitive about how something works
Hmm.
or how an animal behaves or, why the rain falls down instead of up. I mean, you can just be inquisitive and know that, if you're inquisitive enough, you'll actually find an answer, even
Yeah,
if you have to Google it.
which is also a useful tool.
There you go.
Yeah. So another sort of deep question, but how do you define success for yourself personally, and through your career?
Another great question. I'm 75 years old. I define success as doing what I'm doing now.
Hmm.
It's a great time in my life. Um, I have followed my bliss in my life, um, and I'm healthy, and I get to my desk in the morning and don't stop until I'm done early evening because I love what I'm doing. That's that's to me, that's really success, isn't it? If you enjoy life, enjoy what you're doing, and have family and friends that you love, that's, I mean, doesn't get better than that.
Wow. And you're doing something that is really important for the future too. And I can't imagine how many lives you're affecting of people who haven't even been born yet. It's incredible to think about.
Yeah, I was on a video call with an energy leader in Ghana today, and he asked me that, why are you doing this? And I had to say that, I'm obviously doing what we're doing here for to make money. We're in business, but obviously, given my background, I said, it makes me feel good to be bringing what I'm bringing. And then he and I were talking about creating jobs in Ghana with our technology. I said, that just makes me feel good.
Hmm.
Um, and that's a good reason for doing something, assuming it's worthwhile, not a bad thing to be doing.
Wow. Yeah. That's really amazing. And I'm glad you've made those contributions. And I can only hope that I am on a path to do great things like that as well.
Well,
So
I'm sure you are. I have no doubt you are on a path like that.
thank you. Yeah. We'll see. But for now, thank you so much for joining us for this short little interview. Um, and yeah, I'm excited to see what 24/7 Solar does in the future. And yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you and happy Earth Day.